Today we're making gnocchi from scratch. Hi everyone, welcome to Black Cat Kitchen. I hope you're doing well. Today we're making homemade gnocchi. Gnocchi is so simple. It's only 4 ingredients, but we're going to make it extra special today by making a walnut pesto gorgonzola sauce. Let's get started. See the description below for a list of ingredients. I'm using 2 pounds or about 900 grams of Maris Piper potatoes. Any potato that you would make mash with, something that's really hearty and isn't going to fall apart, is what you'll want for this gnocchi. I've left the skins on because it helps the potato to absorb less water when we boil them. I've given my potatoes a good scrub and now I'll put them into a pot with cold water. A good rule of thumb is when your vegetables grow under the ground, like any of your root vegetables, you'll use cold water and bring them up to the boil with your water. Once the skin of your potato starts to peel away and you can put a knife through nice and easily, just like that, your potatoes are ready, so let's strain them off. At this stage, you'll want to take the skin off of your potatoes. Now they're very, very hot, so be careful. Let them cool slightly, but you want to work with them and rice them while they're still really warm. You can use a peeler for this if you find it easier. Now that you've skinned your potatoes, you can get to ricing. If you haven't got a potato ricer, you can mash these with a fork, but I would highly recommend getting one. And I'm just ricing them right onto my work surface. I'm going to spread this out just a little bit to allow the heat to escape so that it can cool slightly before we add our egg. And just like when we're making regular pasta, we're going to make a bit of a well so that the egg sits nicely in the middle and we can incorporate it all together. Now that our potato has cooled slightly, we're going to add 1 egg beaten to the center of our potatoes and we're going to start bringing this together. To this, we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of fine salt. Now that our eggs and salt have been mixed in, we're going to add in our flour. I'm using 00 pasta flour, 250 grams or 1.5 cups. We're going to add this in increments, so a little bit at a time. And just continue bringing it all together, pushing it out, pulling it back, and eventually it will start to form a cohesive dough. My dough is just a little bit sticky still, so I'm going to add a little bit more flour just around it while I continue kneading until it comes into a nice soft dough. I find it a lot easier to have clean hands when I'm doing this, so making sure that you wash your hands of any excess sticky potato bits. Once your dough is nice and smooth, we're going to let it rest for about 30 minutes. You can tell your dough is ready by taking a small amount and just rolling it out into a tube. If it doesn't fall apart, then your gnocchi is ready to rest. See you in half an hour. Now that we've let our dough rest, we're going to cut it into 4 segments. We're going to move 3 of those aside and just work with 1 at a time. And I'm going to cover these back up so they don't dry out. I'm going to put a little sprinkling of flour on my work surface and keep a spare little section of flour just on the side here so that I can dip my cutter and my fork in that little bit. And now we're just going to make a little log. So you don't want too much of that flour, just a little bit, and start to roll it out with both hands, starting from the center and working your way out until you form your gnocchi log. Try and make sure it's even all the way through. And now we can cut our little gnocchi pieces. I'm using a scraper, just like you would use to make bread, and I'm just dipping it in a little bit of flour and taking 1-inch pieces off the gnocchi. And just every now and again, keep dipping in the flour. You can also use a knife here, but I find this is the easiest and quickest way. Now to get those nice ridges on the gnocchi that hold your sauce, you can get one of those fancy boards if you want, but I've always just used the back of a fork. So just dip your fork in a little bit of that flour, take your gnocchi, and run it down your fork. And the great part is if you get a little dimple just like that, that will also hold your sauce. Now just pop it on a floured baking sheet. So start at the top, dimple your way through, and there you are. This recipe makes enough for 4 people to eat quite a generous portion. I would even recommend doubling this recipe because they freeze beautifully. Just pop them in the freezer on their baking tray, and once they're frozen solid, put them into a sealable bag and leave them in your freezer for up to 3 months. While waiting for our pasta water to boil, we'll start to make our walnut pesto gorgonzola sauce. Into a dry pan, I'm going to put 80 grams of walnuts. Just let these toast gently, and when you start to smell them, that's when you'll take them off the heat. Into our food processor, we're going to put 80 grams of basil, fresh basil here. To this, we'll add a clove of garlic, our toasted walnuts. Now here's the secret to keeping your pesto vibrantly green. Add in a couple of ice cubes, and that will keep the basil fresh. Once that's started to come together and form a paste, we'll slowly stream in 4 tablespoons of olive oil. We want this to be really nice and creamy, so I'm going to add a little bit of water until it gets to the consistency that I'm looking for. A traditional pesto has Parmesan cheese, but today we're adding Gorgonzola, 60 grams of it. Once we've mixed in this cheese, we'll test it for flavoring and see if it needs any salt and pepper. Let's give it a little taste and check for seasoning. Definitely a little bit of pepper and a bit of salt. Now that our water is boiling, we're going to add our salt. You'll want a fair bit of salt in here because we didn't use a lot of salt in the gnocchi. And once those bubbles return, we'll drop our gnocchi in. You don't want to overcrowd your pan here. I would say 1 serving at a time is plenty. We're just going to give those a little stir so they don't stick together in the bottom. And they don't take long. Once they start floating to the top, they're ready to go. Use a large spider to get them out. That way you can get them all at once. And then into our bowl so we can sauce them. We'll start with just a tablespoon of our sauce and stir it around, and we can add more as we need it. Just a little bit more. And I'm going to take some of that pasta water and add it in here so that that sauce becomes nice and creamy. Just a little bit will do. That is ready for plating. Taste these bad boys. Like perfect potato pillow heaven in your mouth. Oh, I just want to curl up in bed with them and snuggle them all night long. They are so light on the inside. They've just puffed up, and you just take a bite and it's just like silk. The sauce is so creamy and flavorful. Basil just hits you the second you put it in your mouth, and then you've got that sort of tanginess from the gorgonzola. It's so creamy, and it brings out the nuttiness of the walnuts, and that Parmesan cheese just tops it off perfectly. They're just so good. I can't wait to eat them again. In fact, I'm gonna have them again tonight. Thanks so much for joining us in Black Cat Kitchen. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. We'll see you next time.
He was a dancing cat, fluffy and black. Doesn't like ABBA.